Hi, I'm Martha with OurBrainBank, and this is OurBrainBank Voices. It's a monthly support call for people living with GBM or their carers or their families. Also, sometimes we have professionals on. All are welcome. And I'd like to introduce today, this is Peter Kane of a new nonprofit, new-ish, I guess, called Research for the People. They're based in California, and I think have a really radical new way of looking at information, data, and how it can help individual patients. So they're not working, I'll just give you a warning right now, they're not working on GBM yet, but they hope to in the future. Is that correct, Peter?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, turning it over to you, Peter. Everyone please mute yourself. And then if you have questions, you can just jump in, right, Peter? Is that okay?
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah,
great.
perfect.
So why don't you just start with describing what Research to the People actually is. And then I think the story of, I guess it was the first one that actually found a new potential drug and got venture capital money to invest. Is that correct?
So there's two parts to that. The very first patient that we worked with, it was a sort of a radical idea at the time when we started. They had genomic data for their tumors. It's a rare neurocancer, and I was running a large group that was biologists and folks that were in the computational field and AI. And computational biologists. And so I said, hey, do you want to do a hackathon with your genomic data? This is a rare cancer where there is not a very good standard of care. It's called neurofibromatosis type 2. And so the patient said, yeah, absolutely. So we released his data, open access to about 150 to 200 researchers across the world, and over the course of a weekend, there was different algorithms that were applied to the data, and different clustering algorithms found other cancers that it was similar to, and so an off-label use of an existing drug was proposed. So the patient went on that drug for about a year. And unfortunately, there wasn't a durable response from that drug. But the patient went on to found a few different companies now that are working in the rare disease space, and actually working with organizations, foundations as well, helping them gather biospecimens and generate data so that more research can be done.
Yeah, have you heard of this? Sorry, I didn't mean to get the weeds right away, but have you heard of a new company called Kaya Tech?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so they're really interesting, and they're I guess it's a device, not a drug, and it's a test. It's a super sensitive test that's done. Hi, Jessica.
God. What a pay. Sorry.
Jessica, your audio wasn't working. I could tell. Sorry.
Oh, it's so annoying. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
We just couldn't get it work. Ed was here and it just took forever. Hello, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
Nice to see you.
This is Peter.
Hi.
Yeah. Jessica is our founder, as I said. Sorry, I should probably step back a little bit. Could you just talk a little bit about the difference between genetics and genomics? Because that's something I know you probably know a ton about, but not everybody does. Although I always say when someone gets a GBM diagnosis, they become a research scientist themselves.
You know, I didn't come from a scientific background, and so I definitely don't have the fine-tuned answers to the scientific questions and the data questions. My approach to this and how we got started is really from a more of a liberal arts perspective, and more of a sort of a logistics and connections perspective. Just sort of imagining a new framework for how research can happen, and for how patients that desire to do more with more research, or have more desire to work beyond what their doctors are, the answers that their doctors are giving them, what they can do. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of folks with liberal arts skills or non-traditional science skills entering the scientific and medical field, because I think that there's just so much that can be done, and our program is proof of that. So we're really more building a framework and just building a community than anything else.
Right. Well, yeah, that's, it's funny you say that, because one of our doctors, neuro-oncologist we work with, he's a neurologist and a neuro-oncologist, and he was a French literature undergrad major. And he said all the doctors in his section they were all English majors, art history, whatever.
I studied Chinese language and literature.
Okay, excellent. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of, because the ultimate goal is this would be, once you get it scaled up, and I don't know how that can work, but that it would be the ultimate tool for super personalized treatment, where you could look at all the information that's generated from a tumor sample and from the person themselves. Do you do that too, or is it just, is it both?
So I should back up a little bit and say that our program is still really young. You know, we've existed for 3 years, and in those maybe 3.5 years, and in those 3 years, we've only worked with 4 patients. So we started very grassroots. It started just with nothing, with just an idea, and it's Ono and I, and Ono was a patient with neurofibromatosis, and then we just started gathering people and resources around this idea, and it was really popular the first time we did it. We had an overwhelming response of researchers that wanted to participate and help examine this data from all over the world. We had about 400 people apply to that first case. So it was incredible. And then everyone came together, and Google actually hosted it in San Francisco. So everyone came together at Google for the entire weekend, and it became a really special. I mean, the way that people were responding to it, researchers coming in and working on a patient's data, and then able to shake the patient's hand, people just really loved it. And so we continued with that same model with another cancer patient, a rare kidney cancer. Then we started to dive into helping generate data with patients for our second and third cases. So we started generating whole genome data, exome data, metabolomics, proteomics, and long read data from PacBio and Oxford Nanopore. And the third case went really well, and then our fourth case was another challenging cancer case, a really aggressive rare cancer, and we hosted that case at Stanford in January 2020, so about a year ago, right before the pandemic started.
Oh yeah, because I guess you're not doing, so they call these hackathons where everyone will get together, and were they working for free, and they're looking at one person, looking at all the information, artificial intelligence, and they all are in a big room together, and the person who's being studied is there too, which has got to be so powerful. Oh, Lynn, did you want to say, raise your hand if you want to talk, anyone? So I find that amazing. And I just learned recently myself that you can get, if your doctor prescribes it, you can get a drug that might be not FDA approved in this country, in the US. I think, are we all US here? Anyone from UK? Anyway, you can get permission. It's a whole process, but you just ask for permission to get a drug that's not used here to treat, say, glioblastoma, and get it imported for you. And I have no idea how long it takes or how much it costs, but I didn't even know that was an option. So that would be the kind of thing you'd be looking for, another drug that was promising. I mean, a drug that's for another type of cancer that turned out to work for.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, we're really interested in doing something with GBM, and I'm at the very beginning of my learning curve here. About what we can do in the field that's not being done, and what we can study, or what we can look at that's unique, and that's not getting attention in other research spaces. So I think, as a small, nimble nonprofit that that focuses in on one patient at a time and goes really deep with data, we have the opportunity to do things like that. And I should mention too, our program is being brought into Stanford, so we have some more resources and talent there.
Yeah, there's amazing stuff going on at Stanford that feels very different from the East Coast medical research establishment, where you have your academics, you have your for-profit companies, and it seems like everyone said everything's siloed and they're not sharing. But it seems like out at Stanford, they're much more about collaboration. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of our program, a lot of how we built the program, it takes a lot from the tech space. So in terms of doing a hackathon, hackathons are the territory of the tech space. They started with coders coming together and for a weekend and coming up with some sort of startup idea and coding it over a weekend. And but we applied the same principles to medicine and to patient data. Which I think is the first time that anyone's ever done that. But the other thing that we strongly take from the tech side is the idea of open source. So all the patients that we work with, they make their data open, and so our principles as an organization are open data, open participation from researchers, and open results. So we want to.
Yeah, we're all about that too.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this all day. I'm sure you guys talk about it too, just about the frustrations of HIPAA and privacy and moving data and collecting data and all this stuff. It just all the patients that I have worked with, they hate HIPAA. they view HIPAA as something that is kept them from doing the research that they want to do on their conditions. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't have GBM myself, but I go to the doctor like anyone else, and the idea that my doctor has to fax something to another doctor is just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
I assume that's all because of HIPAA. So I know you had in mind to start a GBM project, but you haven't been able to, right?
So I have a very close friend with glioblastoma. My longtime college roommate has glioblastoma, and that was my initial gateway into connecting with different GBM groups. One thing that I think that he does that's really interesting is he takes a lot of RSO, Rick Simpson oil. So he's
But did he do the standard of care? We don't have to talk about it if that's not appropriate. I think there are people who do the standard of care and then try the other kinds of maybe not non-traditional treatments. And that's one thing we'd like to study through our app and our study. I think everyone on here knows about the OurBrainBank study. If you don't, go to our website, OurBrainBank.org, and we have this study you can join using a free smartphone app. But I can talk more about that later. I think everyone here knows about it. So that's interesting because I see this all the time in the different Facebook groups. The Rick Simpson oil, the Boswala. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people out there. Kind of, they're not. I wouldn't say they're DIYing it because I hope they're seeing regular doctors too. But they're trying new things, and who's studying that? I mean.
Yeah, that's the sense that I got too. Is like it's definitely being used in the patient community, and I don't think it's really being measured that well.
Sorry. When you do one of your, do you call them case studies or what do you call them?
Yeah, cases, hackathons. I mean, the truth is that our program's still young, and I think what our program is going to be able to do and turn into as we raise more funding for it and become more integrated at Stanford is gonna change a lot in terms of you know, how many people we can work with at once, the types of data that we're getting, the types of things that we can study and monitor. So you know, it's yeah.
Well, if you do, you know, I have the perfect person for you if she would want to do it. But one of our board members actually is living with GBM. She's very business science focused. You know, she's the kind of loves to do spreadsheets, you know, which I'm not like. But she's out in California, so I think she would be, and she's a good speaker, and I think she would be a great candidate for you because she's really into this kind of thing. She just loves the whole idea. That's how she came to us, because she was all about studying the data and learning what will help. And you all publish the results, correct? So you can help other people eventually.
Yeah, we made the results open. We're working on rebuilding our webpage to have a better results section. But yeah, ultimately our results section is going to look something like a medical journal, except for you know, our goal is to make it a bit more accessible to at the patient level versus a scientific or medical journal.
Yeah. And then, and now, so you have people, I imagine, range from doctors, oncologists, and PhD students, college students, but could even an intelligent high school student partake?
Yeah, we've had high school students come through. I mean, in the Bay Area, there's these high school students that are just so so smart and ambitious. They're unlike there's brilliant kids. You know, I'd like to add to our program specifically. And as we get further with the program, we can kind of are able to understand what we're building more and more. And what we've really discovered is that our program fits best when we're working with research data, and when a patient is sort of and we're working with like diseases that don't have good treatment options, or when a patient has sort of exhausted all of their clinical options. So we really like to be in the research territory where you know, the data that we're generating isn't necessarily from a CLIA certified lab, which means that you know, clinicians cannot technically make care decisions based on it. But it's, you know, when you go into the research realm, you can get such deeper data and such a much better picture of what's going on versus, you know, only what's clinically validated. And
right, well,
the patients that we worked with, that's like meant a lot to them, you know, like understanding what's going on, even if there's not a clinical option to treat that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because we're thinking about how to move forward with our study and make the data
Yeah.
better. And one of the things that we ran up against quickly, which you were just talking about, is that if we have data, the way it is now, it's very formalized. It's using all the official questionnaires and everything. So they can look at that and they can cite it in a journal article, or you know, anything they can do. It's validated. But if we got data that wasn't validated, we have had researchers say, well, I could look at it to gain insight and then do a study. You know, so it's still valuable. It's just not,
Yeah.
it's not valuable in that a very official FDA approved way.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know, research is so structured, right? It's like, even to get a grant, you need to have a hypothesis, and it needs to be a promising hypothesis, and then it needs to go through all these yeah, it's just I always wonder how much more can be done if we're just sort of if we're gathering data, making it open, and allowing brilliant people all over the world to sort of generate quickly iterated insights on that data, and make those insights open. You know, it's Yeah,
It's really,
that's
it's a brave new world. When I first learned about your work, it took me a while to wrap my mind around it. And then I just thought, this is amazing. You know, this could change everything. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing because I have so many questions, but if
no,
anyone
no, this is great.
so basically, if you're still not following what Peter and his crew do, they're basically using artificial intelligence and robots and computer science to analyze just tons and tons and tons of information, the kind of thing that if you were actually looking at it yourself would take you what, years, and a computer can do it like that, right? Am I understanding it properly?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. All these different groups are developing different theories and algorithms to look at the data. And I think when you present a really creative space to look at data, you get more creative results. And so, some of the things that we've heard from researchers that have participated in our cases is that they've had different things that they want to try or explore with cancer data, but they haven't been able to do it because at their labs where they're employed, their grant funding kind of specifies that they have to, that they're looking at a certain thing and they have to stay on that track. So it's like I think there's a lot of researchers that are very creative people and want to do more exploration, and our format is a good opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, wouldn't it be amazing if some smart high school student figured out, solved cancer? I mean, it's just...
one of the
Oop, you're lagging a little, Peter. Does anyone else have questions? Just raise your hand.
One of the best results that came through for him was from a college student on the East Coast who took a new AI algorithm that had been developed just within the past few years. Is this new type of AI approach, and he applied it's almost exclusively used in like computer vision and on the tech world, but he applied it to RNA sequencing and got some really interesting results. So it's like the younger folks that are entering this space with this intersectional knowledge between AI and biology is just phenomenal. It's amazing. It's a whole new world.
Don't be ageist. I think an old person could come up with that too. Speaking of,
you're right. Well, I mean, yeah.
And so when you moved to Stanford, oh, you know what? While I'm thinking of it, I'd love to introduce you to we have a couple people who volunteer with us, and they're one's a data scientist, one works in data also, and app development. And they're really into this kind of thing. And they wanted to use our data for a class, like have the whole class work on a project. And we thought, well, that's great. And then, but they went in and they said, well, do we have enough, this and that, so it wasn't a perfect fit, but maybe they could look at some of your data. That might be.
Gosh, that's in our roadmap. Absolutely, is to bring these patient cases into a course at Stanford, and assemble teams that can spend 2, 3, 4 weeks on a case with really rich data. And I hope to we hope to replicate this format in medical schools across the country. I think that the hands-on learning is just so much different than textbook learning, right? And especially if you can make a difference in a patient's life, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah.
And I think especially like young researchers are eager to find things that could have been missed or not even looked at by a clinician. And I think, I don't know, I'm hopeful that we can get gains in cancer research that way.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, Peter, this is kind of like a personal question. Have you heard of a company out in your area called Genesis Therapeutics?
I think so. Wait, I'm trying to find who's talking here.
Oh, Lynn, right here.
Oh, there you are. Hey there.
My nephew is one of those brilliant young people, and he is a principal in that company, and they just got like a huge grant. And there's here it says, I'm just reading what it is: a biotechnology company that invents and deploys breakthrough AI techniques to discover and develop drugs, both internally as well as in select partnerships. So it sounds like it's sort of in your realm, I guess.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and they've secured some big money apparently, but they're not necessarily studying. I keep telling him you have to study glioblastoma. He goes, "Okay, I get it." So, yeah.
Yeah.
I can send you, Lynn. I can send you an email with their website, and maybe they can get in touch.
Oh wait, I do know this company. Yeah, they got big funding from Genentech.
Yes, just recently, pretty recently. Yeah, my brother was very proud of his son, so he had to send me all of that. Yeah, but are they working in the same realm that you are? I mean, I don't understand any of this really.
I think they're drug discovery. So yeah, Evan Feinberg, the founder, I used to see him around Stanford all the time.
Okay, and his partner is Ben Sklaroff, which is my nephew.
Oh wow, yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, this is a company. This is a company that's really that's really promising, extremely promising.
I'm glad to hear that. Maybe I'll have an in. I don't know. Maybe I'll be a guinea pig, something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the people in our network that I've, when my friend Tolbert was diagnosed with GBM, he started talking about it in our networks, and there's a lot of people that really want to help, and I think it's up to groups like ours to kind of present the opportunities and bring the data and sort of I don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple of groups, Peter, I'd like to introduce you to, maybe you've heard of them already. One is called Count Me In, the Brain Donor Project. The Brain Tumor Project. They just changed it from brain cancer to brain tumor. So you know them?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so they're at Harvard, MIT. So we support their work. We think they're doing really interesting things. And then the other one is the Brain Donor Project. Have you heard of that?
I think I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it though.
Yeah, so it's funny, there's so many new nonprofits around GBM that start, or brain tumors in general, that started about all around the same time, about 3 or 4 years ago. It's really strange. Anyway, they offer a service where if you sign up, and they want healthy people, and they want people with different medical conditions, and then you sign up to donate your brain, and they take care of everything. It's free, and anyone can do it in the US. And they take care of all the logistics. And then, so what they're developing ultimately is going to be a big data set of all these, the data generated from tumor tissues and healthy brains also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious what level of data folks are normally getting for GBM, if any folks in the here would mind sharing.
You mean from personal individuals or just?
Well, when you're working with your doctors, like what types of data are they generating? I know for another GBM patient, they were getting methylation data, copy number variation, and some targeted oncogene sequencing.
Yeah, we have a whole list of things. We have a questionnaire when you join the study.
Wow.
But it's all patient reported, and that's another thing that comes up looking at the results.
Well, we also get all the information from the doctors when we go in for our checkups. They do us on a regular basis. They'll do MRIs and stuff like that, and they have on the side stuff that you have to do when you're going through the radiology and the chemotherapy. All that information, I know in my case, it was all sent back to me, and I was told, you and the doctor have access and you must explicitly release this, blah, blah, blah. So I had to go through and sign stuff to give it out, but that was tests on my brain from a living being. It wasn't tests on my brain after I pass.
Right, right, right. Of course. Well, that's the ideal. That's good, Brian, that they're collecting that. Although the thing that I always think about and what we want to do with our brain bank study is, if you're at a major hospital, your data is being looked at. If you're at a teaching hospital, academic hospital, someone's looking at that. But you know what? All those people, we always say North Dakota, I don't know why, but all those people in North Dakota, no one's looking at that, all that data that's being generated. They're getting the test, they're getting the information, but it's not getting out there to the world.
Yeah. That is the sort of period of history that we're in right now.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's interesting too, because I know I've had GBM patients or people living with GBM, sorry, how would I say that, say to me, oh, I don't want to do something like, I don't want to donate my data. I don't want to help, one of these nonprofits collecting data because I don't trust, the privacy. I don't want my insurance company to have this and deny me treatment, and that's, how do you handle privacy concerns in that sense?
For us, we work with the patients that have come to us specifically and want to work with us are patients that really that don't have, they're not concerned about that. It's they're patients that are sort of more from the tech side and the research, the science side, and so they're really focused on what more can be done with more data into them. And to us, data is the ultimate source of what can help them and what can help push discoveries forward. And the more people that are looking at their specific data, the better chances and insights they're going to get to get a drug or fight a mutation or something.
Yeah, because we hear over and over again that and it's the way, and I hope one good thing coming out of COVID might be a change to the whole clinical trial approval process, because we hear stories about, okay, here was a clinical trial for a promising new drug for GBM, it failed, and like, end of story, no one publishes it, that's it. But the thing is even if it failed officially, there have been, very small subsets of people with a specific mutation or with, some difference. And that helped them a lot. I mean, but this tiny little group of people, but that kind of data is that, again, no one's looking at that because it failed and it wasn't published.
Yeah, and this brings up the the sort of intersection of treating the disease versus treating an individual, right? Or like the idea of personalized or precision medicine. If you want to find what works best for a cohort or a population, then those types of clinical trials are great. If you want to find out what works best for you as a specific individual, maybe there's 10% of people that responded to this drug. Well, that doesn't mean it failed. We should can it. It means that the 10% of people that respond to it, for whatever reason why, they should get it.
Exactly. That's exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems so, I mean, I don't, again, like you don't have a science or medical background, but that just seems perfect common sense, but it's not getting out there.
So one of the things that I noticed is a lot of the feedback and reporting. I think I mentioned this before, and I apologize if it was talked about already. The data that comes out two different ways. One set of data is, these are the statistical reports. Well, that's not quite true because there's two buckets of it. One set is, this is the technical information that says, I'm going to use the Optune as an example. 75% of the Optune users have to use their stuff for their usage. But they're talking about that per day, and they're talking about that for statistical measurement. The individual user, that's a target, it's not a requirement. And because they have two buckets, what they have is a bucket full of all the data for all the patients, averaged, and then there's a second bucket, which is the average information for this patient. And I'd like to see the reports that come out of these tests to have both of those, that information, so that people understand that I'm looking at the statistical pile for the doctors and the statistical pile for the individual.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian, because, you know, as we hear all the time, and I know some of the doctors we work with, they say, I never tell someone, I never give them a range, a date range, you know, when they get a diagnosis like GBM, because everyone is completely different, you know, and it's, I respect that a lot. I mean, I like people to be realistic, but honest and yet gentle and thoughtful, you know, sensitive about this. But that's really interesting. I don't know, Peter, do you know about Optune? Have you heard about this?
Yeah. You know, I was visiting a GBM patient in New York when I was out there the same, February of 2020, right before the pandemic, and he is.
We should have had that lunch.
Yeah, I know.
Little did I,
well, yeah,
that would have been my last business lunch for a year, you know.
I know, it's. I was visiting a patient in New York, and he had the cap, and he had extraordinary data, and he was you know, he was really all in on the data, and I was really looking forward to working with him.
Which data? The individual data, or the? I look at it as the financial. There's one group which is financial, which is going to back it up. They need the data that says this is across a group of samples that were taken from a group of people. Mm-hmm. Does anybody express any interest in this is the data that was collected from a person?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's for data that's collected from a person. It's always good to measure that against other people too, and you know, so you can calibrate it and find out what you know, just compare the differences. Like when we're doing metabolomics data or proteomics data, the rule of thumb is you need to run it with 3 healthy individuals so that you have a comparison library to know like where the person that you're actually examining is deviating.
Yeah, we had one of these calls. Actually, we had someone from Novacure come on and talk about the science of Optune, and it was amazing. And she showed a slide, you know, and this is all in vitro, you know, in Petri dishes, but here's a slide of living cells, and here's 2 slides of living cells from the same tumor, and then one got zapped with the Optune, and the other one didn't. And you could just see, as a little video, as a little animation, where you could see the one that was not treated was just growing, multiplying, and the other one was like this. It was absolutely convinced me 100%. We're getting up on 45 minutes, and Peter, I know you're busy, but shall we have just kind of, does anyone else have questions, and we can have just general chat?
Well, I'll ask another question.
Yes.
While people switch over to green talking. When you work on setting up the tests and stuff, do you only talk to medical people for these, or do you seek a wider variety? Are you looking for a particular solution to something, or are you looking at a more broad?
So the way to look at our program is really like a framework. We what we intend to do is bring the deepest and broadest data for an individual to a wide spectrum of researchers across the world. And so when we're talking about data, we're talking about whole genome sequencing, exome, you know, long read, potentially long read sequencing, and single cell, RNA, transcriptomics, epigenetics, metabolomics, proteomics. And so it's like all this data machine or instrument data that can be generated, and making that available so that researchers that either in the GBM space or outside of the GBM space that have an interest in it can look at the data in the way that makes sense to them and what their expertise is, and then send those results back to us so we can make them open to everyone who who is participating. So
Yeah. How about, do you look at, now I'm getting off in the weeds here. I just find that so fascinating, but do you look at microbiome at all? Is that part of the data set?
we haven't generated any microbiome data yet, but it certainly could be, you know.
Because what if that's the key? Because you see in GBM all the time, one person responds really well to a treatment and lives, you know, a normal life. I think we have one person in our group who's had 24 years out since diagnosis.
Wow, incredible.
What's the difference between one person getting the same treatment? And we know a lot. We know a lot more now about mutations and tumor types, but there's got to be something else, you know, and maybe it's the microbiome.
Yeah, and I mean that's just one of the reasons that we're so enthusiastic to generate such deep data with each patient is because I think, you know, there's so many things that are going to pop up that are unexpected and people just are non-obvious, where there could be correlations, you know, in the same way that that the research and how trees and forests are all connected. You know, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that all the trees communicate with each other through an underground, you know, network of signals? It's incredible stuff.
I know. Every time I take a tree out in our 10 acres of woods here, I apologize to it. And
It's like the mushrooms.
The mushrooms, exactly. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, Peter, I think we'll let you go. We'll say thank you very much, and I'll turn off.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll turn off the recording, and then Aurelia and I can leave if you all want. You all can just talk. Okay, well, thank you again, Peter. This was really excellent. Thank you so much.
Sounds great.
Thank
See you,
you.
folks.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you.